both sides. Gentlemen, we went over the rules in the dressing room. I want to caution you right now to keep this fight clean at all times, protect yourself at all times, and what I say you must obey. Good luck, Minnesota. Touch him up.
This episode of the podcast is being recorded on Sunday, June 30th, 2019. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Have Fun on the Indies. I'm your host, Abe, and you can fetch us anywhere. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, fetch. Fetch, little doggy. Go on, cute little doggy, fetch. Fetch. Have Fun on the Indies on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. All you have to do is use the handle at HaveFunOTI. That's at HaveFunOTI. There, you'll find the link to all of our podcast hosts, from YouTube to Vimeo to SoundCloud. Have Fun on the Indies. Your host, Abe, at HaveFunOTI. Breathe us in, ladies and gentlemen. Take us in, breathe us in. Get a little bit of Have Fun on the Indies inside of you. And with the commercials out of the way, ladies and gentlemen, I bet I know what you people want to talk about. 3 letters. AEW. Because All Elite Wrestling had Fyter Fest this past weekend. And I was describing Fyter Fest as a house show. I knew it was going to be a good professional wrestling show, but I didn't think it was going to be anything extravagant. I didn't think it was going to be anything crazy. I thought it was going to be more like a Impact house show. And boy, was I wrong. But before we get to AEW, I'm going to snap, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to start this show off hot. I'm going to snap Pro Wrestling Edition. And this I'm going to snap is about independent wrestling promoters and independent pro wrestling trainers letting anyone in the business. And this one's rough because it just pisses me off. So let's start at the beginning. This topic came to me when I was visiting a forum and saw a guy who claimed and then proved that he was an independent wrestler / promoter of his own wrestling company. And the way this guy was talking about the business was insane to me. And I get it. It's good when promoters or wrestlers make themselves available to the fans and talk to them on forums or social media. No one is saying there is anything wrong with that. It's great to be interactive with your fans. But this guy went all fucking out. Talking about the wrestlers, talking about how he's struggling because other local indie companies are having shows on the same day and taking talent. Talking about how that affects the way he wants to book the show. Talking about how, hey guys, if you want to hang out after the show, I can let you guys in the back to talk to everyone. Excuse me? Just what the fuck? I understand wrestling isn't a close-knit circle anymore. I understand that everyone is in on the gig now. But for fuck's sake, can we still have a little bit of respect? Shouldn't talk like that be among company officials and wrestlers? I know it feels good to have people impressed with you being a wrestling promoter. And I know it makes you feel like a bit of a celebrity. But dear Lord, can we not let everyone see the goddamn booking sheet? Can we not leave the booking sheet out in the front row so that when people walk by, all they have to do is turn their head and see who the fuck wins the match? Or how about this? Can we not put the goddamn booking sheet on Twitter? Or post it on social media? Can we stop talking to the fans about how we'd like to book a fucking angle? Really? That's what we're going to start doing now. We have no creative output coming out of our brains, so we're going to start talking to fans about not just what they'd like to see at the show, but how the angle is going to play out. while talking to them and using the word like angle and shoot and work. Look, everyone deserves to be a part of whatever they want to be a part of. The fans are what make professional wrestling. If they want to get in the business, there's nothing wrong with that. Everybody in the business was a fan at one point, which is the reason why they're on it. And you want the fans to interact. That's 100% true. But goddamn, where is the red line? There has to be one. Because at the end of the day, if a fan wants to hang out in the back and be around wrestlers and be around the business in a more prominent way, then they have to do something that most fans don't do anymore before they get in the business. They have to do something that's hard. They have to do something that sucks. And if you're a fan and you want to be in the professional wrestling industry, you have to do one thing. You have to earn it. Either train to be a wrestler, manager, train to be part of the production team, website design, fucking anything. But these promoters and wrestling trainers that aren't weeding out the people that don't want to work to be a part of the business aren't doing professional wrestling any favors. You get these people that slither their way in, not by hard work, but by getting close to people, and then they pollute the professional wrestling river. In my opinion, it's time for that shit to stop. Where you bring a friend or family member, then you take a fucking picture after the show with the wrestler, and the next thing you know, you're on Instagram or on Facebook with the promoter. And the next thing you know, you've done nothing and are not part of the roster because you told the guy how cool his hair looked at the last fucking show. Dear Lord. Oh, man. So, that's the problem. People are in the business for 3 days, for 2 months, and the next thing you know, they're on an angle cutting a promo in the middle of the ring, or they're interfering in a match, or they're all over the locker room listening exactly to how the business works, so they can go home and tell their buddies what they learned without deserving it. You go and do all that bullshit not because you got trained and went through the suffering or took a while to learn the intricacies of how to produce a show. No. Because someone in the locker room's ego can't fucking wait till someone talks to him about how cool it is to promote a wrestling company. So the first time someone does, he nuts everywhere and just lets anyone look at anything. Because newsflash, real pro wrestling companies don't let anyone in that they don't know. They don't let anyone in that they didn't book or didn't hire. Those companies will let you in, though. Those big-time wrestling companies, from the WWE to Ring of Honor, hell, to Northern California and All Pro Wrestling. Those companies will let anybody in once you buy the goddamn ticket to your seat in the crowd and the doors open. Which is the way it should be. You want to make wrestling look good? You really love professional wrestling? Treat it with a little bit of respect. Learn the craft. Don't go in there for 2.5 months, then start wrestling and call yourself a professional. I'm gonna snap. Pro Wrestling Edition is done, son. I had to get that off my chest. It was driving me insane. Might be a little rough, I understand, but it is what it is. And with that being said, I'm going to grab this Budweiser, this 40 of Budweiser, and I'm going to take a couple drinks. A couple drinks for you people, because I love you, each and every one of you. Delicious. And by delicious, I mean disgusting. Anyways, now that we got I'm Gonna Snap out of the way, let's get to the biggest professional wrestling show of the weekend. All Elite Wrestling Fyter Fest results from Daytona Beach Ocean Center in Florida. So as I was saying before I went on that crazy rant, I thought this was going to be more of a house show. I didn't think the quality of match would be what it ended up being. I didn't think they do all these kinds of angles, and I didn't think the production would be what the production was for, say, All In and Double or Nothing. But as I said earlier, boy, was I wrong. Wrong to the extreme. This show killed it. It was as good as any SmackDown or Monday Night Raw show I've watched within the last few years. It was awesome. So let's see here. First thing I noticed when the show started was the production didn't take a back seat at all. Just because it's a smaller show, AEW didn't go out and set up their house show entrance for this thing. So we started off with the prelims, and the first prelim I saw was Private Party versus SoCal Uncensored versus Best Friends. It was a good match, very fast pace. Best Friends defeated Private Party and ACU. After the match is where things got really interesting. The guys with all the masks, the Super Smash Brothers, that used to be called the Super Smash Brothers in the Indies, but apparently, they can't go up against Nintendo, so they have to change the name. The Dark Order appeared on the video screen, had some words for Taylor and Beretta. The lights go out. They're surrounded the ring. Lights go out again, and they're gone. That's a sick group. It has that weird vibe to it, but it isn't like most weird characters nowadays, where they are all dark and crazy. This guy seems crazy and dangerous. It's a different type of crazy. It's not a Bray Wyatt crazy. It's not a look at us, we're a cult crazy. They just look like violent people. Then the next match after that, we had Allie versus Leva Bates. This is a match that everybody shit on because it was a librarian, Leva Bates, and Allie, who just laughs a lot. Allie's a good wrestler. I haven't seen much of Leva. The match was okay. I understood what they were trying to do. There was a lot of shooing and a lot of shh going on, and a lot of spots that involved that, which I can tell the crowd was supposed to kind of mimic the shh at a lot of points, but didn't. It was an okay match. It's the only match that people really shit on, but it wasn't horrible. It wasn't bad at all. It did what it was supposed to do. It kept warming up the crowd for the main card. Then we had the next match. It was a hardcore match. Michael Nakazawa versus Alex Jabali. Alex Jabali being the CEO, gaming creator. And this was a hardcore match. It was a weird hardcore match. It wasn't in, we're going to do all these insane things type of hardcore match. It was what it was. And what it did was it set the tone and it got the seed implanted in your brain that later on, when Jon Moxley gets in the ring, it's going to truly be hardcore. And they planted that seed perfectly. Even at the end, when the CEO brought up all these arcade buttons and back body dropped Nakazawa onto them, which later on, Jon Moxley does something similar, but with thumbtacks. It was a good match for what it was. I was surprised the CEO was that good. Moving on. Christopher Daniels versus CIMA. This match was a match that slowed it down a bit. Christopher Daniels said, damn, there's been a lot of high spots already. There's been a lot of backstage segments already. The fans are already deep into this. We're going to slow it down a little bit. We're going to slow it down and build it back up. And him and CIMA did the damn thing. Winner of the match, CIMA defeated Daniels. And CIMA's been around this game for maybe just as long as Daniels. Maybe he's a bit younger, I'm assuming, but he's been around for a very long time. He was part of the Dragon Gate promotion in Japan. And from what I was reading yesterday, he left Dragon Gate and started that company. I think it's OEC, something over in China, which is where all the Chinese women are coming. And I'm glad Seema's still in the business. He always looked like one of the guys that loved it. His matches were always great. He deserves all the success. Christopher Daniels has been in this business forever. One of the few guys that I will always not understand why he didn't get more of a push. But moving on. Yuka Sakazaki versus Riho versus Nyla Rose. Once again, the women do a crazy fucking job. They put it all out there. Super entertaining match. Riho is so petite. Yuka is so petite. And Nyla Rose is fucking humongous. And it was perfect. Nyla Rose was able, when she got her offense in, she was able to get in her insanely look at me, I'm strong offense. Riho and Yuka sometimes worked together to take down the big woman, sometimes worked against each other because it was, a three-way match, triple threat. The match was awesome, a lot of crazy spots. To me, the person who stole the show out of that whole match was Riho, by far. Riho is by far the best out of the girls that come from the other side of the ocean. All right, so moving on. We had a fatal four-way. Hangman Page versus Jungle Boy versus Jimmy Havoc versus MJF. MJF starts off with a promo that gets heat and gets the crowd making noise. His promos, his wrestling skills, as we've said before, and as people have told me, he's a future AEW main event talent. And his in-ring style is very WWE-ish. He's not doing a lot of drivers. He's not hitting each other with crazy shit all the time. He's got that old school style with a little bit of modern twist to it. It's not really strong style or lucha like everyone else. Anyways, Adam Page is highlighted early, another future AEW main eventer, if he's not considered one already. MJF and Adam Page wait a while before contact is made, which is awesome. Both those guys have the in-ring work down and the presence to make for some fabulous business. Midway through the fight, Page and MJF end up going at it. By far, that was the best part of the match. Those two guys, the stratosphere is the limit for those people. Winner of the match, after the dust is settled, Hangman Page. This whole thing had undertones of a huge MJF-Adam Page feud, and that's money for sure. And then we move on to probably one of, if not the most talented wrestler in AEW. And his name is Cody Rhodes. Cody versus Darby Allin. And this match was exactly what you would expect out of Cody, which is elite in-ring work and elite storytelling. Beer time. Give me a sec, ladies and gentlemen. Anyways, Cody, what do we expect out of him? Elite in-ring work and elite storytelling. He knew how to take Darby Allin, who was a bit more spotty, and slow him down. Not only slow him down, but get spots to mean something. Cody added a little bit of emotion to the spots, instead of the spots looking like a routine that were practiced way too much. Darby Allin had interesting offense, very brawlish, biting fingers, doing anything he can to inflict damage. His gimmick is a tortured soul type of a guy, I'm assuming. And we all eventually forget about his soul and his dark past that the announcers can't stop talking about his uncle and say, oh my God, for his spine when he jumps off the top rope, spine first, and lands on the side of the ring with a sickening thud and a sickening bouncing of his body off the canvas. He climbs the top rope. I forgot the name of the move. I know it's got a name. I think it's the coffin drop. Has Cody Rhodes on the side of the apron and straight up jumps back. Just jumps back with arms across his chest and just sickening landing from the ring to the floor. It was one of the moves of the night for sure. Eventually, Cody Rhodes takes advantage and puts Darby Allin in his own body bag, because Darby Allin carries a body bag, ladies and gentlemen. proceeds to disaster kick Allin while he's in the body bag, and Allin kicks out of the pin. Darby is looking like the classic underdog that won't give up. And that's because of Cody. Cody has been 85% of this match on top, yet it still looks like Darby Allin has a chance. And Darby Allin is already stronger now than he is when he came into the fucking match. At one point, Cody starts majorly whipping Darby with his belt. 30 seconds left before the match is called, and Cody hits the crossroads with 10 seconds left. This match had a time limit. Time is winding down. 10 seconds left. Cody hits the crossroads. Cody goes for the pin, but before the referee gets to 3, time runs out. Darby survives the match. Darby, even with a loss, which this kind of counts as a loss, seeing how he was bludgeoned most of the fight, most of the match, comes out stronger as a character. And Cody Rhodes continues to do things that are incredibly hard to do if you're a professional wrestler. Like having a match where your offense 90% of the time, your opponent is defense 90% of the time, only has about 10% offense, and still your opponent comes out looking better than he did coming in. Even though he is now nowhere near the level of Cody in professional wrestling, Darby Allin's profile goes up. And we can all guarantee that that was all Cody. The whole setup. Winner by 20-minute time limit, it was a draw. Post-match, Shawn Spears nails Cody with an old school swing of a chair shot. I'm talking about just smashes him. It couldn't have been any more beautiful. The way Cody got hit, the way Cody went down, and the way Cody was bleeding from the back of his head. As the announcer yells, a flap of his skin is hanging off Cody's head. Or something along those lines. This whole angle hit every nail right on the head. It was graphic, it was emotional, and it was one hell of a story. And that's Cody Rhodes. He took what he learned in WWE, that WWE style. He modernized it a little bit by taking chunks from Japan, by taking chunks from Lucha, by taking chunks from the Indies in America that had evolutionized themselves already. Took all of that, put it together, and most importantly, kept the part where you tell a story. Kept the part where it doesn't look like the match was rehearsed. Cody Rhodes, ladies and gentlemen. Then from Cody's crazy storytelling to the insanity that was the Elite, the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega, versus the Lucha Bros and Laredo Kid. I don't even know how to describe this match. I really don't. I don't think I'm going to go into detail from this match because it's fucking impossible to go over everything they did. The Young Bucks are two white guys that took the Lucha style and Americanized it, making it insanely badass. Kenny Omega's obsessed with Japan, took strong style and evolved it, and he's insanely badass. The Lucha Bros and Laredo Kid take the Mexican Lucha Libre style and turn it into fucking impactful violence to where it actually looks real now. So yeah, these six savages, and it's impossible to describe. The Elite defeated Lucha Bros and Laredo Kid. What I suggest you do, ladies and gentlemen, when you get to this portion of the show, is grab a beer, take a few hits off of that nice bowl, take a few hits of that Plan of the Gods, and just sit back and enjoy. The match was 100 miles per hour, and it's one thing when it's 100 miles per hour and it's only a good 10 minutes. But this match felt like it was 20 minutes goddamn long. The whole time they didn't fucking stop. And it is what it is. It was a wonderful match. It was perfect setup for the main event. Because we went from funny stuff, crazy women's matches, strong style, fucking six-man craziness. And now we get a whole different vibe. with hardcore wrestling. Unsanctioned match. Jon Moxley versus Bad Boy Joey Janela. So, Jon Moxley was the king of the death match, and then Joey Janela did some ultraviolence himself. And CZW reigned supreme and was better than all of you. I kid. But this whole night, you got the feeling this was going to be deathmatch style. It is the summer, and summer is deathmatch season. And I'm not going to lie, the anticipation for an AEW deathmatch was killing me last night. Things started to get violent when a barbed wire chair was put on Joey Janela's writhing body, and Jon Moxley's boot proceeded to drive it right in there, right into the skin and veins. Tables were smashed left and right. Barbed wire boards were used as tables left and right. Thumbtacks make an appearance, and now the ring looks insane. Janela is barefoot, and Moxley is just dumping him feet first, back first, side first, any which way into the tacks. Paradigm shift into the tacks, and Moxley gets the pin. This match is one of those matches you just have to watch. Jon Moxley, as I've said before, in my opinion, is just as popular right now as any other professional wrestler in the world. He might just be the most popular professional wrestling in the world. And he doesn't work for the most popular professional wrestling company in the world, which says a ton about the guy and his abilities. I mean, the match wasn't deathmatch violent, but it was a really cool old school style hardcore match. There was a time when matches like these became boring and everyone was synthesized to them, but it hasn't been done like this on a high level for a while. It was a perfect main event in my opinion. This whole show, I felt, was to showcase that every AEW show can have all kinds of professional wrestling. Hardcore, strong style, WWE style, lucha. Post-fight, they leave us wanting more by having Omega come out and V-trigger Moxley. Paul drives him on a broken table, double stomps him on a broken table, and leaves him lying as the show goes off the air. AEW, AEW, AEW is all I can really say. Great show. I think they're having another show coming up in like 3 weeks. And let me look that up for you people real quick. They are having another show. It's called AEW The Road to Fight for the Fallen. And that's going to be soon. That's going to be in July, which is pretty much here already. I'll be watching that. I'm sure all of you fine folks will be watching that. AEW. But you see, with AEW having all this success, having people keep saying 2 shows, Double or Nothing, and this show, but I say it started all the way at All In. That's the baby that started it all. And with all this AEW success and all these wrestlers wanting to go to AEW, it's only natural that the WWE is going to try to amp up their game. We're going to talk about right now 2 new employees who now have very crucial roles in the biggest pro wrestling company in the world. WWE hired 2 people with one hell of a track record. Eric Bischoff and Paul Heyman. So, Eric Bischoff and Paul Heyman now have pure creative power, next to Vince McMahon's ultimate power, of course, on Raw and SmackDown. They have full creative power. Paul Heyman is going to take care of Raw, and Eric Bischoff will be the lead for SmackDown. And now, this isn't them being an authority figure on TV and exercising their general manager powers. This is real business. This isn't a TV storyline or anything of that sort. Officially, in real life, WCW and ECW are now running the two most powerful shows in professional wrestling. So I went to this article on pwinsider.com by Mike Johnson, and it goes a little bit into detail about these things. So let me read some of it for you. The announcement today that Paul Heyman and Eric Bischoff have signed on with WWE to become executive directors of the Raw and SmackDown brands is a legitimate announcement, not a storyline situation. WWE has been pursuing Heyman to come on board officially in their corporate circles as far as back as February. Now, Paul Heyman has been with the WWE for quite some time already. He's been kind of like a creative consultant to them, even though doesn't have an official role with them. He's not in the offices all the time. He does TV work, as we all see. But now, he has an official title. And I'm sure with that official title comes more power and comes more money. And we'll see what happens. Now, here's a little bit more of the article with Mike Johnson. The Eric Bischoff deal came together within the last several weeks. Bischoff has been working on pre-production of the planned Netflix Hulk Hogan biography film and had a slew of personal appearances booked. Over the last week, he quietly began canceling those appearance dates, so that is likely when he came to official terms with WWE. We are told he will be working directly with Fox as WWE builds a relationship with SmackDown's new home. And the crazy part about all this is Bischoff did not approach WWE. WWE approached Eric Bischoff. I mean, it doesn't hurt to try. It doesn't hurt to have the two men that had a huge part in the revolution of professional wrestling in the 90s come on board and lend their ideas. So, Heyman will be the lead for Raw, and Bischoff will be the lead for SmackDown. I don't know, man. This is pretty crazy. I like it. I like the fact that we're bringing these two guys in from the Attitude Era. I mean, we have Eric Bischoff, who undoubtedly is a wild card. He does have a proven success record. There's no doubt about that. The only man to almost put WWE out of business once upon a time. He's worked for WWE before as an on-air talent, and he was good at it. His promos and gimmick have always been over. But his challenge is going to be similar to Paul Heyman's challenge. And that challenge's name is Vincent Kennedy McMahon. Now, I'm not quite sure, but I don't think Eric Bischoff has ever had creative control on any WWE show. Which begs the question, how fresh are the memories in Vince McMahon's brain of Eric Bischoff doing anything to get under WWE's skin and to get WWE to go under in the late 90s? What if Eric Bischoff has good ideas and Vince blocks them due to past feelings? You see, the thing with Vince is he's willing to work with anyone if it's good for business. He's done it before, from Shawn Michaels, who made his life a living hell at one point, to Hulk Hogan, who was allowed back after leaving the WWE and almost helping WCW take WWE out. All the way to Eric Bischoff, whom he gave a job to for years. To be a fly on the wall when Eric Bischoff and Vince McMahon have these creative meetings, I'd kill to listen. But one more thing about Bischoff. Bischoff is a gamble in itself. He's a wild card. For sure, he did great things. WCW. Got people over, packed arenas, brought the ratings. And it wasn't all his fault that WCW went under. It wasn't just him. You'd be naive to think that. But as much as his success is outlined, you have to outline one shady-ass business practice. And that was him and Hogan on TNA Impact. Him and Hogan trying to go one-on-one with WWE on Monday nights under TNA Impact. Him and Hogan raking in the cash under TNA Impact. Him and Hogan not coming up with a single fresh idea under TNA Impact. Him and Hogan almost putting TNA Impact under. When Eric Bischoff and Hulk Hogan signed a contract with Dixie Carter and TNA Impact, it was the fishiest shit I've ever seen in my life. They went in there and they acted like it was WCW. They went in there and they raped the company of all the money. And it'd be one thing if the angles that they came up with were good, if the storylines were good. Because in the wrestling business, sometimes you have to lose money before you can make money. But no, these storylines were horrible. It was like you were watching the death of WCW all over again. It was the same old stuff. NWO music, promos, everybody splits into gangs, yada, yada, yada. That situation was a truly weird one. It seemed like Bischoff had no interest in helping the company, and it seemed like he just took them for a wild ride. But at the end of the day, pro wrestling forgives, and we move on. Is it a good idea to have two guys whom everyone in AEW used to watch run things? Well, we'll have to wait and see. It is what it is. I, for one, can't wait because the war is just starting to brew. AEW, nonstop. WWE hears the noise and is going to start responding. As a matter of fact, they responded this weekend to AEW by trying to take away some of AEW's fan base. Because there's no doubt about it, WWE knows what AEW's fan base likes. And they have a company that's kind of similar to AEW. Not as big, but that has that similar wrestling style. And it's Evolve. And WWE decided, hey, you know what? You're going to have AEW Fyter Fest? That's okay. We're going to have Evolve 129 live from Queens, New York on at the exact same time. Their main event was Austin Theory versus Leon Ruff for the Evolve Championship. Roderick Strong was on the card. Tyler Breeze. I'm sure it was a great wrestling card, but it just didn't have the fire that AEW did. But it's getting interesting because WWE doesn't just have to fight back using the WWE brand name these days. They have a lot of power in a lot of places now. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, that, my friends, is the professional wrestling portion of the show. We're going to go from pro wrestling to in between the ropes of the boxing ring. And before we get into anything boxing, because we had Jermell Charlo fight this weekend, we had Demetrius Andrade fight this weekend. Here's an article I came up on Boxing News 24. It's an old article, but it still kind of caught my attention. Clarissa Shields says she could beat up Keith Thurman and give Triple G problems. Oh, that's rough. Before I get into it, let's see if we can listen to the audio. To a little bit of audio.
Guy, I think I could beat him. I think I could beat up Keith Thurman.
Really?
I really do. I think I could beat up Keith Thurman, even though, he's like, oh, he beat Sean Porter. I think I could beat Sean Porter too. Skill-wise and just strength-wise. I think that they may be stronger than me, but their boxing abilities isn't like mine. Triple G, he's older now, but I can give Triple G a run for his money.
I can give Triple G a run for his money. They're all stronger than me, but they don't have the boxing skills. Okay, so before anything, let's all realize that Clarissa Shields is one badass woman in the boxing world. Claressa Shields has brought women's boxing to the forefront now, and her fights are a fucking treat to watch. Her interviews are a treat to watch. She makes people root for her by her personality and her incredible boxing skills. There is no doubt about that. She is Ronda Rouseying women's boxing. She's making it popular. Her, Katie Taylor, the list goes on right now. And I understand she has all the confidence in the world. You're supposed to if you're going to be an elite champion at a vicious sport like boxing. But Keith Thurman? Sean Porter? Triple freaking G. She's starting to sound like someone we are all familiar with from the MMA space. I think we know who I'm talking about. Good old Ronda Rousey, whom is another woman that, in my opinion, just like Claressa, was a draw in their respective sports. They both made their way in a world where it's incredibly hard for a female to make her way. And they both have inspired a generation of women to go out and do things that they didn't think were possible. But when Ronda Rousey started saying that in the right circumstances, she could beat up Cain Velasquez, aka UFC heavyweight champion once upon a time, things got a little weird. Just like how Claressa Shields is saying she could beat up some of these world champs in boxing is a little weird. Under what circumstances is 145-pound Ronda Rousey going to beat the shit out of Cain Velasquez, huh? What circumstances need to be there? I don't know. Cain loses both his legs? Under what circumstances can Claressa Shield beat Thurman or fucking Triple G? When they're in a coma? When both their hands are sliced off and they can't box? I love her confidence and I love her, but sometimes people just say some crazy shit. I'm sorry, but I don't think Claressa Shields, I know Claressa Shields. As a matter of fact, I know that there isn't a woman in any boxing division that can probably beat up Triple G. Or Keith Thurman or Sean Porter. There just isn't. And that's not talking shit to women. That's not being sexist. It's the way it is. Let's say she does have better technical boxing. She gives up the strength, but she has better technical boxing. It's not like she's going to be fighting some guy at the gym who trains 2 or 3 days a week. It's not like she's fighting Joe Schmo at the gym who, right after practice, goes and eats some cheeseburgers. She's going to be in there with Keith Thurman and Triple G. Those guys are elite. So even if her boxing was better, all it would take would be one hard punch for one of these killers. One sniping punch from Triple G. And that's all she fucking wrote. Anyways. It's pretty nuts when you hear people talk like that. I wish Claressa Shields nothing but success. I hope she does well, and hopefully she becomes as successful as Ronda Rousey. It'd be good for boxing. We move on, ladies and gentlemen. We did have some boxing this weekend. First fight I watched this weekend was Demetrius Andrade versus Maciej Sulecki at the Dunkin' Donuts Center in Providence, Rhode Island. Middleweights. Andrade is being pushed hard. Talks of Triple G, talks of Canelo fights. He's had some KOs, TKOs, and some decisions. Not more of one than the other. Seems well-rounded. Sulecki, in my opinion, was a dangerous opponent for Andrade. Even though he's lost his big fights to Gabriel Rosado and Daniel Jacobs, those 2 fights alone have to have taught him something. The experience in big-time fights like that is invaluable. So this wasn't a walkover fight for Andrade. Demetrius in his hometown starts off round 1 hot, knocks Sulecki down, and Sulecki starts having to play defense in the first round as Demetrius starts the assault. Andrade gets back up a bit in the final seconds of the first round, but comes back, and both fighters throw some leather after the bell. First round has everyone hooked. People are going insane. People are craving blood there. We go to round 3. Andrade is keeping up the aggressiveness. Sulecki abides to his aggressiveness and starts firing back at the end of the round. Crowd is hot and rabid. Demetrius Andrade starts Deontay Wildering Sulecki at the end of round 4. That's the only way I can fucking describe it. He's Deontay Wildering him. Huge looping punches that are yearning for a knockout. We fast forward to round 10, and Andrade has been dominating and still staying very active. The boy doesn't get tired. Says something about his cardio. I do notice that even though he's dominating this fight, he gets hit clean a few times with his hands. He gets hit clean a few times. He has this hands-down defensive style. And I don't know if he would be able to take those clean shots if it was to, say, be Canelo throwing them or even Jermall Charlo throwing them. Round 12 is more of the same. Demetrius controls the round. The announcers talk Canelo during the round. And I don't know. They're saying they hope people don't avoid Andrade. He's an exciting fighter for sure. But Sulecki landed some. Not much, but some. And the some he landed were flush. Which can be hella dangerous when you move up the ladder with the likes of Canelo. He fights Canelo. I see Canelo winning big time. Just my opinion, but the beauty of the sport is anything can happen. Winner by unanimous decision, Demetrius Andrade. We had another fight that had some hype behind it. Jermall Charlo decisions Brandon Adams. I got this article here that has some of the stats on BoxingNews24.com by Sean Jones. Charlo connected on 151 of 634 shots, with a percentage of 24. Adams landed 73 of 334 punches for a 22% connect rate. People are saying that Charlo didn't impress them, and even though Charlo won pretty much the whole fight, that he didn't fight someone hard, and they're giving this guy a rough time right now. Charlo, another guy that's calling out Triple G, that's calling out Canelo. The Charlo brothers are killing it right now. Win or lose, they're both huge draws for the PBC. Everybody tunes into their fights. I think Jermell just had a fight last week against Jorge Cota and KO'd him in round 3. He was supposed to fight Tony Harrison, but Tony Harrison got injured. So there's that fight between Jermell and Tony Harrison, which is going to come to pass and which is going to draw a lot of eyeballs because the first fight ended super controversial. The trash talk has been there. It's going to be hyped up. Jermell's booked up. Jermall is over here calling out Canelo and Golovkin. They're going to put him up against somebody that matters soon. But as of right now, they don't need to. He's a draw, and he needs to keep doing what he's doing until they find the right fight. And speaking of Jermall and Canelo, I saw this article, which I'm going to pull up here real quick. There it is. With Jermell Charlo is now the WBC middleweight champ. He got upgraded. And Canelo is now the franchise champion. Now, let's see here. The franchise champion, which is what Canelo is now, has a lot of good perks. Because if you're the franchise champion, you don't always have to fight your mandatory. You can fight the big money fights. And Canelo is a big money fighter. The WBC is just doing what makes them the most money. They don't want Canelo tied up with all these legal bullshit. And they want him to fight. And every time he fights, he brings in a shitload of money. And if he has a world championship belt, he brings even more of a shitload of money. And so Jermell Charlo is now the WBC middleweight champ, and Canelo is now the franchise champion. And all this fucking championship talk got me thinking. Champion this and champion that and franchise champion and pearl champion and all these fucking championships. And what seems to be the problem is all the sanctioning bodies. You have the WBC, WBA, WBO, IBF, and IBO championships. Those are supposed to be the top 5 sanctioning bodies in boxing. And then you have another fucking sanctioning body or another championship that some people call the most prestigious belt out of all of them, and that's the Ring Magazine belt. But let's face it, these days it's about the WBC for sure. The Ring belt, the Ring Magazine belt has the lineage. It's the oldest belt in boxing, but these days everybody cares about the WBC. But here's my point. All these championships, and then you have 5 different sanctioning bodies. But those sanctioning bodies and keeping up with the championships wouldn't be so hard to follow if each weight class in each of these boxing bodies had 1 belt. But instead, each weight class in those sanctioning bodies has multiple belts. Anytime one of these organizations puts out an event with their fighters, they collect fees. The fees they collect are much higher when a championship is on the line, which seems like a problem to me. And you know it's a problem when former champions don't even remember what belt was more important. Hell, us fans are confused as fuck. I've been watching this sport for many a year now, and I still get confused when I see Johnny Come Lately down the street come out at local television with like 8 belts. And you know it's bad when ex-boxers are confused as well. Want to know what I mean? One word: Holly Holm. She has a fight in the UFC coming up against Amanda Nunes for one of Amanda's championships. During the lead up to this fight, the UFC had an interview set up where she talked about her boxing past. One of the questions had to do with how many belts she had and which ones she holds dear the most. And Holly Holm couldn't really answer. She said that she remembers at one point, before or after a fight, and she had all these belts on her and being held by her trainers, and she really couldn't even recognize which belt was the most important. This is a former world boxing champion. If it's a problem for the fighters themselves, you damn right it's a problem for the fan. Casual or hardcore fan, it doesn't matter. It's one of the things MMA has over boxing in terms of marketing. Because when a belt means something, it sells more tickets, more pay-per-views, and it makes main events feel big. Having 1 million belts on everybody just because a belt is supposedly, not even proven, supposedly going to bring in more pay-per-views isn't a good idea in my opinion. Everybody's confused, and it comes down to who's the best. Who's the fucking best? I don't know, because they all have 80 belts around their waists every time they come out. Anyways, Sean Porter versus Errol Spence Jr. was announced. Man, Sean Porter is just a fucking man now, isn't he? And now we have Errol Spence, who is being called, along with Terrence Crawford, one of the best in all of boxing at the moment. And quite arguably, this is his biggest test in his career. Compare some of the names. I mean, Spence and Porter are in very similar situations. I was going to say compare some of the names Porter has fought and some of the names Spence has fought. They're both very similar in level. They are supposed to fight in September, and I can't wait. It should be one hell of a boxing match. And when I went, where was this picture I saw? I saw a picture online of, here, let me see if I can find it. I saw a picture of Sean Porter standing next to Errol Spence as they were being interviewed. And my God, Errol Spence looks fucking huge. In every way you put it, tall and thick. And Sean Porter looks incredibly small next to him. They're saying Spence is 5'9.5", and Porter's 5'7". They're going to be fighting at welterweight, which is 147 pounds. I'm assuming Porter's going to have a lot easier time making the weight. Errol Spence doesn't really not make weight, so you can't talk shit. But this should be a really good fight. I'm looking forward to it. And the last boxing thing we're going to get into is Dillian Whyte. And all I can say is, dear God, Dillian Whyte, boxing is a real bitch to you, isn't it? Like that ex-girlfriend who's a real cunt. I saw this article on BoxingScene.com. And it was Dillian Whyte reacting to the fact that Alexander Usyk, who's never fought at heavyweight, never had a fight at heavyweight, is now the mandatory for the WBO championship. Alexander Usyk, who's never had a heavyweight fight, is now the mandatory to fight world champion Andy Ruiz. Just what the fuck? For the love of God, I don't understand why Dillian Whyte isn't getting more of a push in the sport of boxing. His fights are almost always exciting. His fights with Derek Chisora were premium fights. They had the drama, they had the hard hits, the dirty boxing, the grit, the sweat, excitement. Hell, even when he loses, his fights are exciting. Look at his Anthony Joshua fight. There was damn near a battle royal in the middle of that thing. Because despite what people say about Joshua, he's had great moments. Dillian Whyte was one of them. And more than half the reason that fight has that great main event big fight feel is because Dillian puts on exciting fights. And he knows how to cut a promo. Knows how to do an interview. He's literally the whole package, and he's getting the shaft from boxers like Tyson Fury and from non-boxers that run these sanctioning bodies. The guy has money written all over him, and nobody wants to take a risk because he might actually beat a cash cow. Whyte is 31 years old. There is still time. But come on, let's get the ball rolling here. One of the most entertaining boxers in the heavyweight division, and nobody's going to pick up on that? Everybody's going to let him sit on the sidelines because boxing continues to do this bullshit where they don't give us the fights we want to see. If Tyson Fury isn't going to fight Deontay Wilder, if Anthony Joshua isn't going to fight Tyson Fury or Deontay Wilder, if these three men aren't going to have some sort of fights amongst each other, then throw Dillian Whyte in there. Have you seen the man with the microphone? Have you seen him in the ring? Elite boxer. Elite boxing character. Give that man a chance. And we're going to end this boxing edition with the match of the week. Boxing match of the week. I don't know if it's my CTE acting up or what, but I don't remember if I've recommended this fight already. But go watch Marcos Maidana versus Adrian Broner, December 14th, 2013, Alamodome in San Antonio, Texas, USA. That was by far one of my favorite fights of all time. It was great. And from the boxing ropes and the boxing ring to the cage, to the mixed martial arts cage. Last night, UFC had a show on ESPN. It was UFC on ESPN 3. Francis Ngannou versus Junior Dos Santos from the Target Center in Minneapolis, Minnesota, USA. A couple of heavyweights, a couple of striking heavyweights. And you knew this thing was going to end with somebody going out. It was a short fight. Both heavyweights exchanged brutal leg kicks to start things off. Ngannou starts hitting Dos Santos with leg kicks that looks like they're going to just chop Dos Santos' legs off. The leg kicks continue. Dos Santos starts hitting back with leg kicks. Then Ngannou lands one of those giant canned hams he calls a fist. And JDS is done, son. It's the beauty of watching heavyweight MMA fights. Anyone can be separated from their consciousness at any time. Crowd went insane for the finish. Winner by TKO via giant fist to the face. Francis Ngannou. Francis Ngannou, it makes you wonder what his path is going to be. He started off super hot in the UFC. He lost a fight against Stipe Miocic. Dana White, for some reason, got pissed at Ngannou. Started talking shit about Ngannou. Started saying the success got to Ngannou's head. And now Ngannou seems more relaxed. It seems like he's not as scared of the main event lights as he used to be. Who knows? It's going to be interesting when we see him fight a grappler again. He fought Cain Velasquez, knocked Cain Velasquez out. Cain Velasquez is a good grappler, but Cain Velasquez was also coming off a long layoff. So we move on to this article I found that just Sean O'Malley and USADA. I went to MMAfighting.com, an article by Alexander K. Lee, and Sean O'Malley announces withdrawal from UFC 239 after banned substances resurfaced. So here's something Sean O'Malley put up on Instagram explaining the situation. Let me read parts of it for you people. I want to share the facts with you about my latest USADA tests and how it affects my fight next month. USADA has notified me that Osterine, the substance that showed up in my system last year and led to USADA sanctioning me, has resurfaced at an extremely low level in 2 recent tests. The good news is that USADA says this is most likely residual from last year and that the low level is providing me with no performance advantage, aka picograms. However, I think it's very important, before I continue reading, that USADA themselves said that it's providing O'Malley with no performance advantage. And that's why, so back to reading what O'Malley said, that's why USADA is not re-sanctioning me for these test results. I already served a USADA sanction for the presence of Osterine in my system and has decreased dramatically since last year. The bad news is that the Nevada State Athletic Commission has temporarily suspended me while they look into the situation. I feel terrible to let down my fans who are looking forward to watching me fight in Las Vegas next month. I look forward to publicly discussing my case before the Nevada State Athletic Commission with scientific experts who can explain why very low levels of Osterine are showing up in my system. And here's the last of it. I want to make one thing very clear. I have never purposely taken any prohibited substance to gain an advantage. I will subject myself to whatever additional testing is required of me by the Nevada State Athletic Commission. I want to get this situation finally cleared up so I can return to the octagon as soon as I can. My God, this USADA. Before anything, let's all face it. The United States Anti-Doping Agency is needed in MMA. It just is. You can't let guys just juice all day long to where the sport becomes who has the most money to get the better stuff. I'm all for PED testing. I'm all for USADA. But just like anything, USADA isn't perfect either. And sometimes it's like, what the fuck? What the fuck are we doing? Like Sean O'Malley. So they found traces of Osterine in his system. Again. Osterine was what he was suspended for the last time. I think it was a contaminated supplement, which is why his suspension was so short. But this time, it's different. It was super small trace amounts, probably at the picogram level. And the USADA scientists said that the traces are so small that it's giving O'Malley no performance advantage. He's getting nothing out of it. So my thing is this. If it's giving him no performance advantage, why announce it? What's the whole point of announcing this thing if it's not giving him an advantage whatsoever? Come on, we're all fucking adults here. We know what happens when you announce things like that. The fighter's reputation starts getting tainted because a lot of the idiot fans automatically think cheater. And for young guys like O'Malley, it makes you wonder, how the hell is O'Malley making money when he's getting suspended for something that isn't even helping him? I hope his video game streams are doing well, I guess. I know there's ways to make money off of that. I hope those succeed because USADA isn't doing anyone any favors. Again, why announce these things when it doesn't even matter because it's not giving him a performance advantage? Can we start looking at fighters like people and not just product? Product like the stuff at Target or Walmart? They're people, for God's sakes. Sometimes we should look at how things like this are handled through the fighter's perspective. That's just my opinion. Maybe if we took the fighter's point of view every once in a while, we can adjust the system to where it's fair for everybody. So now, O'Malley can't fight at UFC 239 in Vegas because the Nevada State Athletic Commission has temporarily suspended O'Malley while they look into the situation. Which means O'Malley gets fucked some more and can't make a living for a few more months, I suppose. Or who knows how long. All because he has traces so small it gives him no performance advantage. But we still had to announce it for some weird fucking reason. I understand that the technology is so advanced now that you can detect almost anything at almost any level. To the point where you can probably detect things you didn't even know you consumed. Things that came with the meat you ate, the fruits or vegetables you ingested, the supplements you took. It's a crazy time in PED testing, that's for sure. Do we need PED testing? Yes, 100%. That's for sure. But can we go about it when it comes to announcing these things a different way? Yes. I can't wait to see Sean O'Malley fight again. And I hope Sean O'Malley, somehow, some way, the MMA gods do him good for all this lost time. And we're nearing the end of the podcast, but before we leave this MMA portion of the show, I got one more article that's a little bit fucking nuts. I'm going to pull up here. It has to do with UFC parent company Endeavor looking to buy premier boxing champions from Al Haymon. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, you heard that right. UFC parent company might buy premier boxing champions. Let me read some of this article. Which, by the way, before I read this article, I got it off of bjpen.com by Tom Taylor. UFC president Dana White has talked about getting into the boxing business for years. Yet so far, he's made no headway on that mission, at least not publicly. But that could soon change. According to The Athletic's Mike Coppinger, UFC parent company Endeavor and its CEO, powerful ass Ari Emanuel, could soon be buying premier boxing champions from another powerful ass motherfucker named Al Haymon. Here's what Coppinger explained during a Q&A on The Athletic. Rumors are true. Al Haymon had several meetings with Ari Emanuel about a potential deal where Al Haymon would still be majorly involved the same way Dana White is with the UFC following that deal with Endeavor. Dana White has come out and said, I am making all my boxing moves after this summer. When this summer is over, you'll be hearing a lot about what I'm doing in the sport of boxing. And sometimes I wonder if articles like this make anyone in the boxing community nervous. Because UFC isn't just the Fertittas and Dana White running things anymore. It's Endeavor and CEO Ari Emanuel. And those guys have safe fools of money. They are not hurting for money one goddamn bit. And in a recent interview, Dana White said that these days he gets an idea and his bosses give him the money to make it happen. Any idea, he said. Straight up came out and said, I think of something, Ari Emanuel will get me the money to do it. And as we know from history, whether you like him or not, Dana White is super ambitious. If you're going to give Dana White an open checkbook, then he's going to try to build an empire. The only person at this time that has the possibility of taking the reins of boxing and getting the best to fight the best under one umbrella is Eddie Hearn. But as modern as Eddie Hearn is, he still at times has that old school boxing mentality where you don't always put on the best versus the best. You sometimes protect your cash cow, which is understandable to a certain extent. But that's a different can of worms. Back to Dana White. Looked what he helped to do with the UFC, and that was with half the money that he has now. He might just take that same fire and take it into the boxing business. He's already said that he 100% will be getting into the boxing business. How serious is he going to be about it? We'll have to wait and see. To me, it seems like he's all in. Him and Eddie Hearn kind of had a small beef that fused out real quick because Dana White said he was talking to Anthony Joshua. I don't know if it was a year ago or when it was, but it was a while back. Now we have talks of buying PBC. Just what the hell? Exciting time to be a combat sports fan. And you know what's even more exciting is the fact that on the professional wrestling side, you have AEW and WWE at each other's throats. What do you think is going to happen when two outspoken ass motherfuckers like Dana White and Eddie Hearn collide? Because if any of this comes to pass and Ari Emanuel ends up buying PBC and keeps Heyman on board, you can guarantee Eddie Hearn isn't going to lie down and just let you take over the boxing business. Eddie Hearn could possibly be said to be the one to single-handedly bring boxing back up from the slump that it was in. By bringing all these European cards to the United States. By being on DAZN. By not being scared to co-promote with other promoters. Business is going to pick up. And I can't wait. No, I'm going to snap MMA edition this week. Instead, you get Fight of the Week for MMA, which is Fedor Emelianenko versus Hongman Choi. Saitama in Saitama, Japan in 2007. Go watch that crazy fight where it's David and Goliath as Fedor locks in an armbar and just hangs off of Hongman Choi's body. Good times, ladies and gentlemen. Good times. Folks, this has been Have Fun on the Indies. Catch us at HaveFunOTI. That's at HaveFunOTI. I'm your host, Abe. Thanks for joining me. Have fun on the Indies.